Hello, I'm Mark Dolan, and welcome to the eagerly awaited press conference of the even more eagerly awaited Star Trek movie. Alongside members of Her Majesty's press, we're also joined in the room by the following people. John Cho, who plays Sulu, Eric Bana, who plays Nero, Zoe Saldana, who plays Uhura, Zachary Quinto, who plays Spock, J.J. Abrams, who directed the movie, Chris Pine, who plays James Tiberius Kirk, Simon Pegg, who plays Scotty, and Carl Urban, who plays Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now this event is being beamed across the internet, which I think is quite Star Trek, if you ask me. And it's available to viewers logged on at skymovies.com. Also, a number of today's questions are submitted by viewers of skymovies.com who have submitted their questions online. And the first of which comes from Raj in Nuneaton, and it's to everybody, which is, do you need to be a Star Trek fan to enjoy the movie? JJ?
Chris, take it. Oh, the pressure. I do not think you have to be a Star Trek fan to enjoy the movie. I think what appealed to me in the beginning was the fact that when I spoke to JJ, we came from a similar place, which is that we weren't initially fans of the series. I think, and this speaks really more to the genius of the man right here, is that he knows how to combine big spectacular effects and wonderful imagery with something a bit smaller, which I think is the great character drama that's in this film that we've made. So whether you're a fan of small movies or big movies, or I think you'll find something in this that is appealing.
Okay, we'll take a question from the floor, perhaps.
This is a question for Zachary. And I just wondered, did you actually lobby for this role? And were there also some pros and cons for taking such an iconic part and also sticking with a genre which is somewhat similar to the one you've already had your television break in?
Right. First of all, it was a sort of unintentional campaign that I ended up involved in. I was doing press for Heroes just as I found out JJ was making the movie, and a journalist from my hometown newspaper asked me if there was any other project I'd be interested in, and I mentioned how much I would enjoy playing Spock in this new iteration of the franchise. Then that article got syndicated, and subsequently other journalists that were interviewing me about Heroes started asking me about Star Trek. So it was something that sort of happened very unintentionally, but also sort of organically in that regard. In terms of, what's the second part? The pros and cons, right. Right. Well, I think, we exist now in a different time than the one in which the original series was created, and I think that there's less of a stigma attached to science fiction now than there was 40 years ago. I also think people's attention spans have diminished greatly in that amount of time. So the notion of an actor being inextricably associated with a character that they play now seems to be a little bit less of a phenomenon than maybe when Leonard and Mr. Shatner took these roles and created them. I'm just glad to be a part of something that I'm genuinely excited about and feel really proud to be a part of it. Thanks.
Okay, let's take another question from a Sky Movies viewer. This is from Tim in Burnham-on-Sea, and it's for JJ. What aspect of the original Star Trek TV series or subsequent incarnations seemed the most insurmountable at the outset of this project, and how did you approach dealing with that?
I think that it's so much bigger than anything I've worked on before. The scope of it's so crazy. And despite it being Star Trek and being a fantasy, our goal was really to make the thing feel real and alive. And it's a strange one because it's dealing with a lot of obviously over-the-top, science fiction. It's a clear fantasy, but I really wanted to make sure you believe it. And the only way to do that is really with the characters. So the biggest sort of challenge was to take something that has pre-existed us for decades and make it feel legitimate and vital and relevant for today. And the only way to do that was going to be through the characters that these actors, I think, brilliantly portrayed. So none of the visual effects, spectacle would matter if you didn't care about and believe those characters. And that was the thing that I think was the goal we had, and I believe that they achieved it. So,
okay,
thanks.
So. Thank you, JJ. And let's take another question, gentleman in the red shirt.
A question for Chris. First of all, did you study Shatner for your performance? And also, are you braced for all the attention you're going to get from a star-making role like this from the press? And
what was the first part
the
of
first
the
one,
question?
did you study William Shatner?
Oh, yeah.
And then the second bit, are you braced for the press attention?
So having not been a fan, I was aware of the series but hadn't really watched it. I'd seen some of the old episodes. so then going back and, JJ's team had all of the remastered original series to look at, so I went home and started my due diligence and started watching, and I found kind of midway through the first season that as much as it was a positive adventure, kind of, searching through that world and seeing the dynamics between the characters and the aesthetic of the TV show, and I really found myself paying more attention to how could I, perfect the ideal William Shatner as James T. Kirk impression, or and that was not the mandate that JJ had set forth in the beginning of this process. It really was to, while paying homage to what was done before, so you could kind of have a sense of continuity between Mr. Shatner and myself, that it really was time to breathe new life into these characters and to give it a new, fresh perspective. And in terms of the media attention, I certainly hope this movie is a success, obviously. So, again, like Zach, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this new incarnation of the story, and to be sitting up here with all of these wonderful people that I love so much. But, I can't predict the future, so we'll see what happens. But I'm hoping for the best.
Who are you?
I'm with
He's
him.
with me. We are traveling at warp speed. How did you manage to beam aboard this ship?
Hey, you're the genius. You figure it out.
As acting captain of this vessel, I order you to answer the question.
Well, I'm not telling, acting captain. What now? That doesn't frustrate you, does it? My lack of cooperation. That doesn't make you angry.
Are you a member of Starfleet?
Yes. Can I get a towel?
Under penalty of court-martial, I order you to explain to me how you were able to beam aboard this ship while moving at warp.
Well, don't answer him.
You will answer me.
Here's another Sky Movies viewer question. This comes from James Salter in Cornwall, and it's to Simon Pegg. And it's as follows: you've been a fat boy running, a magazine writer writing, and now a spaceman boldly going. A lot of work's gone into this question.
It's good.
So when you were a little boy, did you ever play Star Trek characters? And if so, who did you play?
Yeah, as a fan of the show as a kid, I've watched this show since I was 9. I remember it being on BBC Two at 6 o'clock tea times. I'm sure other people in this room do as well. And being utterly beguiled by it, sort of finding my science fiction legs with Star Wars, obviously, because that kind of exploded in 1977 and was very much a brash light show, and getting more into science fiction and enjoying the cerebral nature of the original series, which is what they had to do because they didn't have the resources to do Star Wars. Obviously, in 1965, they did something which was almost like a play every week. Getting into that as I got older, I just completely fell in love with it. So to become part of it as a nerd, which is what I am, and I'm sorry, but it's true, is extraordinary. And to do scenes, when Chris and I were doing our scenes with Leonard Nimoy, it was kind of weird, because he was talking to me as the man I've known since I was 9, and that's not a man from this planet, it's a man from Vulcan with pointed ears. And it was kind of odd to have Leonard look at me and say, lines, and me not go, and become very excited and want to go to the toilet. But so for me, the joy of being part of this story is on a daily basis, I wake up and pinch myself. It's fantastic. And also to join this group of people who have I came slightly later to the shooting because the shoot was a long shoot, and everyone had already met each other. But when I joined the crew and I finally came on board, it felt so right, and in a weird kind of hippie-ish way. It felt like we already knew each other, and it immediately clicked and was a great feeling. And I think that kind of the spirit of togetherness that pervades Star Trek was very much there on the set. So it was extraordinary. I've just gushed my way into forgetting what the question was, but there you go. I'm a nerd.
Also, Simon, you just wanted, I think, to contribute to the first question about whether you need to be a Star Trek fan or an obsessive about the franchise to enjoy this movie.
I don't think you do. Chris is absolutely right. You don't have to. But if you are a Star Trek fan, there's a lot in it for you. There is a level of conversation between viewer and film in this. If you do know Star Trek, you'll get lots of little bits and pieces, and you'll feel spoken to and acknowledged as well. It's an important fan base, Star Trek. They're dedicated. They love their stuff, and it's an important thing. And what JJ has miraculously managed to achieve with this, which I think lots of people have in the past have tried to, when you try to appeal to an existing fan base and a new viewership, it's a very hard balance to strike. I think this nails it completely, because you can watch this not knowing anything about the pre-existing history and love it for the sheer adventure and human story and the ideas of it. But if you do know it, then, and you see that the surface of Vulcan looks a little bit like Vasquez Rocks in California, where they shot the episode Arena, nerd, you think, fantastic, you know. So it just nails it, and I'm just very proud of it for that reason.
Great stuff. We'll take a question from the lady at the front in turquoise.
Another question for Simon. Is it true you turned down the part at first? And if so, how did you feel when you were actually in character, especially in front of Leonard Nimoy?
I never turned it down. JJ emailed me, didn't he? Like he does, because, you know, rather than just sort of go through all the usual rigmarole, I just got an email saying, would you like to play Scotty? And just going, yes, please, felt like ridiculous. I felt like I should think about this. I should take a couple of days, and I did. But I was always going to say yes. And it was, you know, doing, as I said, the scenes with Leonard.
Well, the response, you sent back and you said, I don't think I could do that. Yeah. And so I sent back saying, oh, well, next time. And then immediately, not so fast.
Wait, play with me. This is a courtship.
I understand that. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Let's take another question from the Sky Movies audience. This is anonymous, probably anonymous because it's quite clearly an uber fan of Star Trek, a lifelong uber fan. Every fan knows the difference. This is to Eric Banner. Every fan knows the difference in appearance with the Vulcans and the Romulans. Romulans have forehead ridges and Vulcans don't, of course. So why wasn't this so with the new movie?
Yeah, Eric.
Just because it wasn't. I inherited my look from JJ and our wonderful designer Neville Page, who sent me secretly encoded drawings of how Nero would look, and I just went, yep, that looks great. So I don't know how to answer that question. It's probably more for JJ, actually.
Well, I mean, JJ, to what extent did you feel that you had to be a historian of Star Trek in order to kind of dot the I's and cross the T's? You know, or to what extent do you think, no, you know, it's poetic license and we can redraw this how we want?
Well, I was never a huge Star Trek fan when I started working on this, and so I didn't have that feeling of it being sort of sacred text, that I couldn't, you know, make creative decisions that I would think would be better for the movie. And the risk there obviously was alienating fans of Star Trek, original fans, and I didn't want to do that, but I also felt that if we did our job and made a movie that was entertaining, it would include Star Trek fans. Things like the exact look of certain, you know, species, that's changed in the history of Star Trek anyway. You can even look at the original series and find inconsistencies that they had, but it's part of the charm of and the reality of an ongoing series. It's fiction. You know, at a certain point, you got to make the right choice for the right movie. And if we had only gone after sort of pleasing the existing Trek fans, I think our movie would have been a very different film. So things like that were really a question of what feels right for now, what feels interesting, knowing we will always upset someone. There's always going to be someone who's going to feel like it's, you know, sacrilege to change this or that or make this adjustment or that adjustment. But I couldn't approach this film, none of us could, from the point of view of what does that one particular fan want. We had to look at the film and try and put blinders on and not listen to the noise of, you know, that kind of nitpicking stuff. I think that the overall, one more thing, the overall concern we had, I think we were protected by Roberto Orsi, one of the writers, who's a huge Trek fan. And he made sure that we weren't slapping the face of the diehard fan, you know, and we're beholden to that person. I mean, those fans are people that we wouldn't be making a Star Trek movie if those people hadn't kept it alive for so many years. So it was a tightrope sort of to walk, I think.
Here's a question to John Cho. It's from Jack in Cardiff. And he says, do you think after your kick-ass performance in Star Trek, none of your Harold and Kumar fans will see you in the same light again?
I hope they still like me, even though I've taken a little bit of a Terry from comedy. Terry, are you impressed? Wow. I'm not even sure if that makes sense. But I'm really thankful for the opportunity to jump genres, and JJ is a fan of kind of messing with paradigms, and I'm just happy to be a part of that experiment.
So you like jumping genres? Maybe period drama next?
Let's do it. Three Musketeers, Ben, are you in?
Possibly.
All right.
Abrams
Call
to
your
direct.
agent.